Welcome back to the Gary Sutton Show on WSBA, and I'm going to do something today I normally don't do, and because yesterday was kind of a interesting day. I'm using the word interesting because I don't know what other word to use for it. In the first half hour here, I want to take some time to remember three people. Not that there's not a lot of people out there we want to remember, but there are three people specifically that I had some contact with and knew and were related to, actually. And I wanted to talk about them this morning here in this particular half hour. And then the last half hour, I want to get into this whole article by Rolling Stone that condemned a fraternity at University of Virginia for raping a girl, and it turns out that was not true. And there was a scathing report yesterday on the Rolling Stone rape story by Columbia School of Journalism, but it points to a larger problem, I think, in the country today. And one of the things that we hear about this morning is nobody at Rolling Stone the Rolling Stone magazine, is going to be disciplined. Nobody's going to be held accountable. A whole lot of people were hurt over this. A lot of people condemning fraternities all over the country and so forth. It turns out this did not happen. And I want to get into some of that and the story. And by the way, the fraternity, as of this morning, is now suing Rolling Stone magazine. They have announced legal action. Good for them. But we'll get into some of that. And one of the problems today with journalism here on the Gary Sutton Show, but I want to take a moment here to talk about three people. Yesterday, and you may or may not know these people, okay? Yesterday, I got a call late in the afternoon that my wife's stepfather, who just a lovely man, had passed away. And I ran over to the house immediately and spent some time with the family. Of course, my wife was shattered, and her mother, Diana, was having a difficult time with this. He had been on hospice. He had COPD very badly, and he had been on hospice for a while at home, and his name was Bruce Taylor. And I want to tell you a little bit about Bruce Taylor this morning because Bruce Taylor is like so many people in life that he was a farmer most of his life, loved to bowl, was a guy who loved to hunt and fish, was a really neat man. And when I met my wife and got a chance to meet Bruce, he had known my father a little bit during his lifetime. My dad died about 22 years ago. And Bruce was just one of those good, plain, salt-of-the-earth people that told it like it was, had a wicked sense of humor, loved Phillies baseball. In fact, we went over to see him on Sunday, on Easter, and I was sitting there talking with him, and we were talking. We always talk about baseball. He usually had a Phillies game on if they were on. They were like his beloved team. And I said, "What do you think this year?" And he said, "I'm not sure we're going to be that good this year." And it was kind of amazing and somewhat ironic yesterday that on the opening day when the Phillies were playing and losing, by the way, that was the day that Bruce left this world. It's important that I talk about him this morning a little bit because here was a man who, sometimes we all just quietly go through life. And we don't know if anybody really notices. And we don't know if, people really stop to listen. And there are a lot of people out there who are like that. And they're so valuable. There's so many untold stories. I get a chance to do this every day, and people kind of know what I'm saying and so forth. And I guess that's a really good thing. But for a lot of people, they don't get to do a job quite so public. Here was a guy that went out and raised dairy cattle for a whole lot of years. And he and I were sitting and talking. He was at death's door a couple of times. And we sat and talked one day, and I said, what did you like about farming so much? What did you like about farming? And he said, he said it was seeing things grow, knowing that every day was a little bit different, even though you had the same routines a lot of days, but knowing that every day was a little bit different. We had a really neat conversation the one day, and he was talking about farming and how there was something beautiful about it. And being out there on the land and being out there with these cattle and producing something and doing something and knowing that there was something tangible you were doing with your day. And I thought, wow, just think about that. Doing something really tangible with your day. That's an incredible thing. And the hard work that it took and understanding all the little nuances there and understanding how to make things work. I talked to my brother-in-law, Jim, one day, and Jim said, this guy taught me more lessons about life than anybody I ever met. Because He had a plain way of speaking to you. He had a hard work ethic. He had a belief in the goodness of other people. And he was a guy who, you wanted to be around. In the last bunch of months here, we played a lot of cards with him. And his sense of humor was just absolutely sly and wicked and good. And, when you get around people like that sometimes, you just sit there and you bask in kind of the sunshine of who they are. And even on Sunday, and knowing that he was having a tough time breathing and he had special equipment that he had to use and so forth, he's still the unbelievable sense of humor and the ability to kind of just fight through all that to be just a good person was right there. And I've often wondered, if I was in the same kind of situation, would I be able to be the same type of person? We always ask ourselves that question when we're in the presence of suffering, and yet you wouldn't know that because the good all shines through, the happiness about life. And this guy fought off leaving this life for a long, long time. He was a very tough guy. And so as I think about the Bruce Taylors who go through life, as I think about the good people who go through life, and their story isn't often told. Here was a guy who affected so many people in such a good way, just by knowing them, just by who he was, just by being himself. And you know what? The moral to that story is that, sometimes that's enough. You don't have to be on the radio. You don't have to be on TV. You don't have to be out there. You don't have to be on Facebook or anything else. You just have to be yourself. And sometimes that's something, I think all the time, that's something, if it's a positive thing, and it sure was in this case, that a lot of people could say, you know what? He was just a good man. That's a pretty cool feeling. And I kind of patted him on the head yesterday when I got to the house, and he was lying there, and my wife and I had a prayer over him, and said, you're a good man. What more can be said about somebody that you were a good man or a good woman? I think that sometimes has to be just enough, doesn't it? And so my first remembrance today is for my father-in-law, Bruce Taylor, who I know is breathing a lot easier now, and I know is looking now with a smile and probably hoping that the Phillies win today. My second remembrance today is for a woman who I got a chance to know over the years. And her name was Barb, but we all knew her as Babs Platts. It was Todd Platts' mom. She passed away a few days ago, and in fact this morning, probably right now, they're probably still there at the Aldersgate Church, and at 10 o'clock, they had a service for her this morning. I had a chance to run over there last night to the viewing, and it's amazing when you want to mark a person's life, how many people were there. Took us an hour, close to an hour and 20 minutes to get in to see the Platts family and Babs. And it was amazing to see all the people that came there to honor her. And you say, well, what was she honored for? Well, she was the mother of a congressman, obviously, but more importantly, she was a mother of good children. She was kind of a professional mother. She was a lady who worked downtown at a facility where cars were parked. She got to know a lot of people. She was brought up here in York. She was a lady who just absolutely exuded happiness every time you met her. Again, a sly sense of humor. But a lady, when I met Todd, and we had him on the show a lot, and his mother used to bring fudge in here sometimes, and Todd would say, my mother sent this along with me. And what was amazing last night at the viewing was they had actually her fudge was made, and people could grab a piece on the way by, and they had a remembrance card with her fudge recipe on there, which was fudge that she actually made for President Bush when he was in office. And he used to love it. And he'd ask where it was, and Todd would drop off tins of this fudge to the president at that time. But, she didn't need that. She just enjoyed her kids and enjoyed life and enjoyed her grandkids. And she passed away from an illness this past weekend after a long fight. But you know what? When I went in there last night and I saw the happiness that she had left behind with so many people, just by being a professional mom, maybe not just to Todd and his brother Mark and his family there and sisters, but more importantly, she left behind, this idea that you just love everybody. There are people, when you get into their presence sometimes, I've heard this said about a number of politicians over the years, but I think about regular people. When you get into their presence, you just feel better. You ever had someone like that? You've walked in their presence and they just make you feel better. Babs Platts was like that. And Todd and I used to kid about our mothers, and our mothers got together a couple times. And, it was because they give to people and they make people feel better because they are moms and they understand. Moms have a certain, we're getting ready to celebrate Mother's Day here in about a month, and moms have a certain way of getting to you. C.J. Huffman was saying a while ago, sometimes it's just a way that we talk to vets that they understand. Moms have a way of talking to their kids and other people in a way that they understand. Moms have like a sixth and seventh sense, I think, sometimes. Don't you agree? Where they have the ability to understand that which is not being said. Understand that which is being hidden for whatever reason. Understand what you're going through. Almost like Radar O'Reilly. They're out in front of you, understanding what you might be wanting to think about. I think Babs Platts was that kind of person. And like I said, the one thing I remember about her, and whenever I saw her, was the smile on her face. And the joy at having children and grandchildren and friends. And that's what I'll remember. I could not go, obviously, to the funeral this morning because I'm doing this, but I wanted to pay tribute to her because, and then Todd is a very good friend, and Leslie and their kids, TJ and Tommy, and their family. But, more importantly, talking about the mother here, who liked the smile on her face when she give you a tin of fudge, who liked to hear a good joke, who liked to just know that, there were friends. There were other people here that were friends and that she could help to take care of and make feel better. So my second person I wanted to remember today was Babs Platts. Kind of a professional mom, huh? When we come back, I have one final person I want to mention this morning because it seems to, they say, come in threes sometimes. It did for me yesterday. I want to tell you about a guy named Lee Haines when we come back here on the Gary Sutton Show on News Radio 910 WSBA. Welcome back to the Gary Sutton Show on WSBA. My final remembrance here in this half hour, and I thank you for indulging me a little bit today. I normally don't do this, but I just felt really strongly that it had to be said today. Lee Haines is the father of Matt Haines and husband of Chris Haines. And a lot of you know Matt's story. We've talked about that a lot, have Matt in here as a guest, and his dad, Lee, was in here with him at the time, and about how he went to Afghanistan and was shot, and today is fighting to try to regain control of his motor skills and continuing that good fight and looking for new ways to get that done. His mom and dad have been unwavering in terms of their assistance and their help and their optimism and staying there with him the whole time. I met Lee Haines when we started to work and trying to help Matt get money for his dog, Jackson, who is his help dog. And we did that through Christmas Magic, and a lot of you, thank you very much, helped us out a couple years ago. But I got to know Lee and Chris, Matt's parents, very well during that time too. And we started to have dinner with them and kind of on a regular basis, and they'd come up and be at Christmas Magic with us. And Lee Haines was kind of a guy that loved to joke. I mean, just was a guy that loved to joke. He worked at Northeastern High School in a custodial role, but he had also done barbecues and things like that over the years, had his own barbecue thing along with Chris. And he was a veteran himself and understood, what veterans go through, and was an unwavering support for his son, Matt. And we were having dinner probably about 6-7 months ago, and Lee told us at dinner one night that he had contracted ALS, and it was in his throat. And if you know about ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, it is just a debilitating disease that eventually leads to the end. And so he told us that night and told us about he was ready to put up the good fight, and his wife was kind of kidding him. She said, "I'm not going to let him out of here that easily," and he's going to. And this family is so strong. It's amazing when you think about sometimes the challenges that we all have thrown to us. And Here was a dad, a mother, and a son who were already facing some really, really incredible challenges with the help of a community and a lot of people that are still helping to this day. But as you heard earlier from CJ, they're passing on a lot of the help right now to other people. That's the kind of people they are. And, I didn't know what to say that night when he said that to us. Didn't know what to say. But he kind of put us at ease, and he said, listen, I understand what it is. Don't pity me. I'm going out here, and I'm going to fight the good fight. And he did that. And he passed away on Saturday of this weekend. And, one of the interesting things I remember is Lee and I were buying teddy bears and different things like that we were giving away as prizes up at the Christmas Magic as part of our raising of money for Matt's guide dog. And, or help dog, excuse me. And we talked a lot. We got to know each other a little bit. And just listening to him talk about courage and about those kind of things. And then also the joking. And one of the things that was a long-standing joke was he said to me one night, he said, I think I'm going to come up here some night. I'm going to dress up like an elf and come up here to Christmas Magic and be an elf. And we kidded constantly. I said, where's that elf outfit? He said, I'm going to find that one of these times. And, he was just one of those guys that, again, a sense of humor. That seems to be a common trait, doesn't it, through these three people I've talked about today. A sense of humor, a sense of smiling. So important. So very important. And so, I'm going to miss Lee. And I think that, again, here again are the quiet people who are there supporting and doing things, don't want any light shined on them, are just happy to make sure. And here's a guy who was so happy when his son got home alive after all the trials and tribulations that Matt had gone through. And he and his mother were so grateful and happy, and, of course, their whole family, grateful and happy that they were home. And then showed courage along with their son on all the things that they had to try to do to help Matt pull through. So a lot of good people today. And I know all of you have your own out there. And I just felt today that I wanted to talk about all three of these people, Bruce Taylor, Babs Platts, and Lee Haines, because they represent the very best in us. And when they leave a void and a gap. And, we the living are the ones that have the void and the gap. Yet we know, I think, if we have a certain spirit in us, that they are in a better place. And they're looking down, and we know those smiles will envelop the families, and we celebrate lives. I know it's a sad time, but I find myself sitting down saying, we want to celebrate a life well lived. And in all three of these cases, and there's so many more out there we could be talking about too, but in all three of these cases, they were lives well lived. And nothing more had to be said. They were all good people who, that was the final thing that needed to be said about them. And I'm a much better person for having had all three of those people pass my way.